Nobody goes further for a joke like Sacha Baron Cohen. For him, getting one usable scene can mean changing everything before anyone even knows there's a joke.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's appealing. There's times, before the gun rally, I had to put on a bulletproof vest because there was a chance, the security felt like there was a chance someone could shoot at me. So that's not appealing. This style of acting is, as we all know, it's terrifying to be an actor. You're scared before the scenes. You're scared, for those of you who go on stage in the days where we did have stages. But this style is even more terrifying.
With Borat, I ended up taking my trousers off and I had my actual underpants on. And I remember the person who I was with saying, hold on, why are you wearing those if you're from Kazakhstan? And it blew the whole scene. And at that point, I realized that I would have to be a complete person. So I wasn't a method actor, but I had no other alternative but to appear like a, Daniel Day-Lewis in the real world, because so
all those prosthetic looks are, you get up at 3:30 in the morning, and it's 5 to 6 hours, transfer, because you put on an entirely new head.
Yeah.
And it's layers and layers and layers, and then it's an hour taking it off it.
And then you sweat inside of that.
You sweat, and so when you take it off, it's actually really good for your skin because you're
very
covered in
hydrating.
sweat. You're completely wet underneath.
On Who's America, one interview room got hot enough to put the silicone disguise itself in trouble.
And during the interview, it was in a very, very hot room. The cameraman looks at me and he gives me the signal that meant that I had to go out the room. I go out the room and the makeup guy's there and he goes, I go, what's the problem? And he goes, you have 3 ears. And I look in the mirror and this ear has become horizontal. So it's become horizontal, so you can see 1, 2, 3 ears. And somehow this guy, who was an intelligent man, had not noticed that the man he was talking to had 3 ears. Well, to actually get in the building, I pretended to be a sound guy and I sort of was carrying in equipment and that kind of thing. But once I was in the middle of the interview, I was interviewing one of their chief scientists.
Right.
The PR woman came in and said, that's Ali G, you're Ali G, aren't you? And I said, no, I don't know what he was talking about. And so she went off and came back with a laptop with my picture on it of Ali G.
What was it from? It was from like an HBO website or something.
It was the HBO website, and it had me with my goatee beard on. It had the yellow glasses, the the Tommy Gear
So
hat.
it looked exactly like you.
Yeah, she held it next to my head, and she said, "Are you honestly telling me that that is not you?" And I looked at her and I said, "I've got to be honest. That is not." So my wife very kindly smuggled the beard in her underwear.
Is that true?
That is actually true.
That's a true story.
That's true, yes.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I did some research, so these guys, particularly in the 80s, football matches would be incredibly violent, and they used to be very well planned, these fights between different, they were called crews. So I went up to the north of England, I met up with the most famous and violent soccer crew.
You're out of your fucking mind, you know.
I decided, I knew it was going to be dangerous, so I hired a bodyguard.
Right.
And the bodyguard said to me, he goes, listen, just so you know, I'm going to be blending in. He goes, if anyone knows you've got a bodyguard, you're in trouble.
Right.
Suddenly he's got a beer in his hand, like blending in.
Yeah.
Anyway, I look at him again, the beer's finished, and then he's going to the bar again. And I look at him, and within half an hour, he's unconscious, asleep.
We're delivering jokes in that hour or 2 hours, or in the case of, I spent 5 days in one scene. That's a separate thing. The jokes have to come in such a way that the person you're with does not perceive that you are delivering a joke. Mm-hmm. Yes, that means that the performance has to be completely consistent. And that means everything you're doing, from the way you walk to how you, sit down, to how you eat, to how you drink, everything is planned out beforehand. You've got the scene that you want to appear on the movie. Then you have the how do I get in and actually perform the scene? Then how do I get out without being arrested by the 15 or so Secret Service, Capitol Police, and local security who escorted me out?
Maria Bakalova was in the Giuliani hotel room while Sacha waited inside a hidden wardrobe, following the interview through one phone.
But actually, during that scene, we had built a hideaway in the wardrobe, which was about 6'5" and 3 foot wide, and I was in there for the entire scene. And my only means of communication, the idea was that I would jump out at the necessary point, and I would communicate. I would know what he was doing via text messages with the director because I had no eyes on anything.
And you don't want Maria left alone with Rudy Giuliani.
Well, Rudy thought he was alone with her. He brought a cop with him, an ex-policeman, and the policeman does a sweep of the entire hotel suite. And I'm obviously running to get in there, jump in the hideaway, lock, pull this thing shut, and I've got a little internal lock, and it's pitch black in there. Does a sweep and then leaves the room, and the security guard, ex-cop, his security guard sits outside the room, ensuring that no one could come in and out, which is actually even more scary when you think about it for her. But the only thing was, so we built this hideaway, we're all fully prepared. I get in, his security guard does the sweep, looks in the wardrobe, there's nothing untoward. The interview starts and I switch on the phone and there's only 3% battery. And I thought
we ended up shooting in this township actually in South Africa, which was great actually. We were there for 3 days. We had to get like the approval, the local sort of gangs run it. So we had, you get there the first day and there were like 50 of their local guys with massive clubs who were standing around, and that's how you shoot, essentially. Yeah, it sounds immoral, but that's the way you do it.
It was a 7-hour scene I spent with these two hunters. When they realized that they were alone in a field with Bruno, they went and they loaded their shotguns. And that was of concern because I realized that about an hour later, I was going to, while naked, try to get in. So with CPAC, the vice president was speaking. So, that's the same level of Secret Service as the president. That day, I had to get in the makeup chair at 1 a.m. in a motel nearby CPAC. They put, I have a prosthetics team that we've flown over from England to transform me into Donald Trump, which is a 6-hour process. Then you're wearing a massive fat suit. Then I have to go through different layers of security, get fake ID, go through, then the TSA wand me down. So there's all this kind of stuff. The wand goes over me from the TSA guy and then basically goes over my stomach and it goes beep. It goes over my chest, it goes beep. And the guy says, "What is that?" And I go, "It's my pacemaker." And he goes, "Oh, okay." And then he carries on wanding me. And then it goes down to my belly and it beeps again. And he goes, "What's that? Why is it beeping?" And I'm really tense, and I've got like the field producer next to me who's like completely crap. Thought about this situation. I was like, we cannot wear anything metal so the TSA can't find me. And then it's going beep over here. And he goes, "What is that?" And I didn't know what to say. I was completely stumped. And he said, he looks at me and goes, "Oh, that's the wire leading to the pacemaker, right?" I was like, "Yeah, obviously." He goes, "All right, come through." But you go through there, and then I'm hiding in the toilets at CPAC for another 5 hours, just hiding in a cube.
I asked him what made up the mess you guys rolled around in for what he said was 3 days.
Yes, 3 days.
And he said he didn't ask. Did you ask?
Yeah, I'm the producer of the movie, so they were showing me samples. And in the end, it was actually the fluid that approximated what we needed the most was actually made of a type of McDonald's sauce. So we brought in about 14 tons.
Larry Charles changed Borat's naked fight bit so Ken Davidian would sit on Sacha's face. Sacha worried he might not be able to breathe.
I said to Larry Charles, I go, "Okay, here's the code, which is if I tap the mattress 3 times, that means I'm out of oxygen. And you pull it, you shout and you rip him off." Anyway, when you see the actual scene, you see me banging 3 times, and they do nothing. And I mentioned this once before, but I did at that point, I realized I had 2 choices. Either I could die, or I could suck the air that had been stuck up by co-star. And in that moment, I chose to die. We were doing Borat once in Sedona, and the police had been called because I was simulating masturbation. Sorry.
At the Mega Mosque shoot, Sacha knew the next group had guns in cars outside, and the first group had already given him a reason to worry.
It was, we realized there was a kind of issue in that scene where, again, so you're trying to get the scene, you're trying to be imperceptible, you're trying to be, completely immerse yourself in character. And there was a problem that everyone had guns. So the first group of people we brought in, we asked them to leave their guns. We took their guns off the coach. And so they didn't bring in guns. And then but the second group, they had their cars parked outside, and we knew a lot of them had guns in the car. So we were scared that they would go outside and get their guns and bring the guns back in. And the first time we did it, one of the people had, said, listen, now I know why you took our guns away from us. I said, why? He goes, we were going to use them against you. And so what we were concerned about the second time was that it would be a kind of inverse mass shooting, where you'd have 47 shooters and 1 victim. And so everyone in the crew, I basically said, okay, what we're going to do is, it's going to be the opposite. We're going to have an opt-in program where you are choosing now to stay and everyone else has to go. Because, we were aware that it could turn into kind of the OK Corral. But luckily it was fine. And I'm here.